They called her the perfect preacher's wife, faithful, loving, and devoted to her family. But behind closed doors, she was hiding a secret so dark, so unforgivable that it would end in bloodshed. Vanessa Grayson wasn't just cheating on her husband. She was sleeping with his father. And when their twisted affair was at risk of being exposed, they came up with a horrifying plan: wipe out the entire family. A preacher's wife and her father-in-law plotting the murder of their own family. It sounds too sick to be true. But in July 2024, this nightmare became a reality in Birmingham, Alabama. What should have been a picture-perfect home turned into a crime scene drenched in betrayal. And the most chilling part? They almost got away with it. Welcome to Real True Crime Stories, the channel that brings you the darkest and most shocking true crime cases. If you love unraveling twisted real-life mysteries, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a case. Now, let's get into it. Elliot Grayson was more than a preacher, he was a pillar of faith in Birmingham, Alabama. At 38 years old, he had built a thriving congregation that looked up to him as a man of wisdom, integrity, and devotion. Every Sunday, the pews were packed with people eager to hear his sermons, his voice ringing with passion and conviction. To the world, he was a God-fearing man, a dedicated husband, and a loving father. But behind the pulpit, behind the prayers, behind the carefully crafted image, his home was a different story. Vanessa Grayson had once believed in the fairy tale. At 35 years old, she was the perfect preacher's wife, poised, graceful, always standing beside her husband with a smile. But that smile was a mask. The truth was, she felt invisible in her own marriage. Elliot had once been passionate about her, but over the years, his love had shifted, from her to his church. Faith was his obsession, his congregation was his priority, and Vanessa was just another obligation. She tried to be the devoted wife. She played the role of supportive partner, loving mother, respected first lady of the church. But deep inside, resentment simmered. Elliot had given her a beautiful home, but it felt like a prison. He had given her 2 beautiful children, but she felt like a single parent. He had promised her a life of love and partnership, but instead, she felt alone. And then came Theo Grayson. At 62 years old, Theo was everything Elliot wasn't: charming, dangerous, and thrilling. A former conman turned businessman, he had built a fortune through shady deals and manipulation. While Elliot preached about righteousness, Theo thrived in the shadows, bending people to his will. To the church, he was the preacher's father, a reformed man, a generous donor. To Vanessa, he was a temptation she couldn't resist. It started with small conversations. Vanessa never planned to cheat on her husband. She had been the devoted preacher's wife for over a decade, standing beside Elliot through every sermon, every prayer meeting, every community event. But she felt trapped. Invisible. Like an accessory to Elliot's perfect image instead of a wife. And Theo? Theo was nothing like his son. It began with harmless talks about her marriage. At first, Vanessa just needed someone to listen. Someone who wouldn't dismiss her feelings or tell her to pray it away. Theo was understanding, sympathetic, or at least, he pretended to be. "It's like I don't even exist to him anymore," she confided one evening. They were sitting in Theo's car, parked in a quiet lot on the outskirts of town. She had needed an escape, and Theo had been more than willing to provide it. "You deserve more," Theo said, his voice low, smooth, persuasive. "You're a beautiful woman, Vanessa. A man should cherish you." It was one sentence. One simple line. But it unlocked something in her. Late-night texts turned into long phone calls. Long phone calls turned into secret meetings. And soon, Vanessa stopped feeling guilty. Elliot had taken her for granted for too long. He didn't see her. He didn't appreciate her. But Theo made her feel alive. Their first kiss was in a cheap motel off the highway. Vanessa had told herself she was just meeting Theo to talk, just for a little while. But the second she stepped inside, she knew there was no turning back. He pulled her close, his hands rough but familiar. Like he already knew every inch of her. "You don't have to go back," he whispered. She wanted to believe that. She needed to believe that. That night, everything changed. The affair became reckless, passionate, unstoppable. They snuck around like teenagers, meeting in hidden places, taking bigger risks. Theo was bold, confident, dangerous. He made her feel like a different person. And yet, with every stolen moment, the danger grew. Elliot wasn't stupid. He started asking questions. Noticed when Vanessa was distant, distracted, always checking her phone. If he found out. If he exposed them. It would ruin everything. Theo didn't want to lose her. Vanessa didn't want to lose her comfortable life. And so, a solution was born. Elliot had to die. But not just Elliot. The children were a problem. Lucas was 10 years old, sharp, always watching, always listening. Ava was 7, innocent, loving, trusting. If Elliot died and they survived, they would be a link to the past. A reminder. A burden. They had to erase everything. The plan was perfect. A home invasion. A random burglary gone wrong. Vanessa would be the sole survivor. She would cry on the news. She would play the grieving widow. And then, once the dust settled, she and Theo would cash in Elliot's life insurance and disappear. Together. Free. But there was one thing they didn't realize. Their perfect plan. It was already falling apart. Theo knew exactly who to call. He had spent years around criminals, scammers, and hustlers. Long before he ever played the role of a respectable businessman. He wasn't just Elliot's father. He was a man with connections, the kind of people who could make problems disappear for the right price. One phone call was all it took. The man on the other end of the line didn't ask questions. He just named his price, $20,000 up front, $20,000 after the job was done. A small price to pay for a brand new life. But Vanessa hesitated. This was different from talking about it in whispers. This was real. Theo could see the doubt in her eyes as they sat in his car that night. "This is our only way," he said, his voice firm. She wanted to believe there was another way. That somehow, she could be with Theo without doing this. But how? Divorce wasn't an option. Elliot was a pastor. A pillar of the community. If she left him, she would lose everything. Her home. Her reputation. Her status. Theo reached across the seat, taking her hand. "Do you love me?" he asked. Vanessa's heart raced. "Yes." "Then trust me." She exhaled. Closed her eyes. And when she opened them again, she was ready. July 14, 2024, 2:37 a.m. The Grayson house was silent. Dark. Outside, the streetlights flickered against the humid Birmingham night. Inside, a shadow moved. The back door had been left unlocked, just as planned. The hitman stepped inside. Gloved hands. Black boots, barely making a sound against the wooden floor. He knew the layout. Theo had given him specific instructions. First, Elliot. Then the kids. Vanessa would be the lone survivor. The air was thick. The kind of stillness before a storm. He moved down the hallway, past the framed family photos. Past Lucas's school portrait. Past Ava's drawing from kindergarten. This wasn't a home. This was a target. 2:40 a.m. He reached the master bedroom. The door creaked as he pushed it open. Elliot stirred in bed. His pastor instincts kicked in first. Not panic. Just awareness. Then, bang. A single gunshot to the head. Elliot never had time to scream. The bullet tore through his skull. A dark red mist sprayed against the headboard. The hired gunman turned, ready for the next step, but the plan was already falling apart. Lucas heard the shot. The 10-year-old ran into the hallway. His bare feet slapped against the floor, his small frame shaking. "Mom." His voice cracked. Bang. The bullet hit him mid-run. His tiny body collapsed, limp, lifeless. 2:42 a.m. Ava. The 7-year-old had heard everything. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She did the only thing her little mind could think of, she hid. Under her pink princess bedspread. A stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. She squeezed her eyes shut. Held her breath. Maybe if she stayed still, the bad man wouldn't see her. The killer stepped inside her room. He could hear her breathing. The sound of pure terror. The closet? No. Under the bed? He crouched down. Lifted the covers. Bang. Vanessa heard the gunshot. She forced herself not to react. She sat in the kitchen, waiting. Her hands were shaking as she grabbed the rope. She looped it around her wrists. Tied it, just loose enough that she could escape when the time was right. 2:45 a.m. It was done. Her husband. Her son. Her daughter. Dead. She bit her lip, forcing tears to well up. She had to look the part. The grieving widow. The broken mother. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the phone. She pressed 911. Her voice shattered when the dispatcher answered. Hello. Oh my God, someone broke in. She let out a sob. I think they're dead. Please. Please send someone. The dispatcher's calm voice tried to guide her. Vanessa let out another gut-wrenching scream. The perfect performance. 2:52 a.m. Police sirens sliced through the night. Neighbors woke up. Porch lights flicked on. The first officers stormed in. They saw Vanessa first. Sitting on the floor. Her hands loosely tied. Tears streaming down her face. Please. My babies, she wailed. The officers rushed past her. And then they saw the horror. Elliot, his head blown open on the bed. Lucas, his small body crumpled in the hallway. Ava, still clutching her stuffed rabbit. Dead. The officers swallowed hard. One of them knelt beside Vanessa. You're safe now, he said softly. Vanessa looked up at him, her face drenched in tears. She nodded. Whispered, thank God. The community mourned. A beloved pastor, murdered in his own home. 2 innocent children, slaughtered. And the only one left alive. The heartbroken wife. No one suspected a thing. At first, Vanessa and Theo got away with it. The police believed her story. The community mourned. Elliot and the kids' funeral was a grand affair, filled with sobbing church members, heartfelt speeches, and tearful prayers. Vanessa played the devastated widow flawlessly. She cried in the front row, hands shaking, leaning on Theo for support. People whispered about how heartbroken she looked. How cruel it was that she had survived while her husband and children had been taken from her. No one suspected a thing. But Vanessa was never good at laying low. 3 weeks later, she and Theo took a trip to Miami. A luxury oceanfront resort. Endless champagne. Candlelit dinners. Sunbathing on a private yacht. And then came the mistake that unraveled everything. Vanessa couldn't resist showing off. She posted pictures, videos, a slow-motion clip of her sipping a mimosa by the pool, a boomerang of her clinking glasses with Theo, a full-body selfie in a designer dress, captioned, "Deserved happiness." The comments section exploded. Wait, isn't she supposed to be grieving? Why is she on vacation with her father-in-law? This is weird. The posts spread like wildfire. People started talking. Church members. Old friends. Even the police. The detective who had worked the case took another look. Something wasn't right. Vanessa hadn't even received Elliot's life insurance payout yet, so where was the money for this extravagant vacation coming from? That's when investigators pulled her financial records. And what they found made their stomachs turn. Large cash withdrawals in the months before the murder. And Theo? The same thing. Thousands of dollars withdrawn. At the same time. From different accounts. That wasn't grief. That was a payout. A closer look at phone records showed hundreds of calls between Vanessa and Theo. Late at night. Hours-long conversations. Texts that had been deleted, but not before the phone company logged them. Something was there. The police just needed one more piece of evidence. And then, fate handed it to them. The hitman who killed Elliot and the children got arrested. Unrelated case. An armed robbery gone wrong. During interrogation, he panicked. He was looking at 25 to life. So he made a deal. He had information about a bigger crime. A murder for hire. He confessed everything. Vanessa had set it up. Theo had paid for it. The home invasion had been staged. The police had been played for fools. Not anymore. On August 3, 2024, officers stormed Vanessa's Miami hotel suite. She was in a silk robe, drinking champagne on the balcony, when they knocked. Expecting room service, she opened the door with a smile, and froze. Guns drawn. Badges flashing. Vanessa Grayson, you're under arrest for the murders of Elliot, Lucas, and Ava Grayson. Her glass slipped from her hand. Shattered against the floor. No, this has to be a mistake, but the officers weren't listening. They grabbed her wrists. Forced her face down against the marble floor. Cuffed her hands behind her back. Tears smeared her mascara as they dragged her away. Downstairs, Theo was at the bar, sweet-talking a younger woman, when the officers came for him. He barely had time to react before they slammed him against the counter. Liquor bottles toppled over. Glasses shattered. A bartender screamed. Theo struggled, cursing, demanding answers, until he heard Vanessa wailing in the lobby. His face went pale. He knew it was over. They had been so close to getting away with it. But in the end, their own arrogance and greed sealed their fate. The case shocked Alabama. A pastor's wife and his own father, accused of orchestrating his murder. Of slaughtering innocent children. The courtroom was packed from the first day of trial. Every detail, every revelation, spread like wildfire. Vanessa walked in wearing a modest black dress, her hair neatly pinned back. A desperate attempt to look like the grieving widow she had once pretended to be. Theo, in a navy blue suit, still tried to carry himself with the confidence of a man in control. But they weren't in control anymore. The prosecution tore through their carefully crafted lies. They played Vanessa's phone records. Showed texts between her and Theo. One, sent 3 days before the murders, read, "I can't wait to start over. Just you and me." Another, the night of the killings, "It's done." The bank records were damning. $20,000 withdrawn in cash just weeks before the murders. Another $20,000 days after, sent to an unregistered account, traced back to the hitman. Then came the final nail in their coffin, the hitman himself took the stand. He told the jury everything. How Theo had approached him. How Vanessa had begged for it to look real, to make her the survivor. How they had sat in a car together, just days before, going over every gruesome detail. The jury barely needed time to deliberate. On December 12, 2024, the verdict came down. Vanessa Grayson, guilty. Theodore Grayson, guilty. When the judge read the sentence, life in prison without parole, Vanessa broke. She screamed. Collapsed to the floor. Begged for another chance. Theo just sat there. Silent. Expressionless. As if he had known all along that this was how it would end. But the real tragedy. Elliot. Lucas. Ava. A family that should have had a lifetime together. Gone. Vanessa and Theo had destroyed everything for love, for greed, for a future they thought they could steal. Instead, they would spend the rest of their lives rotting behind bars, haunted by the blood on their hands. The Grayson family's church never recovered. The congregation felt betrayed, unable to believe the woman they once admired could be so evil. A memorial was built in honor of Elliot, Lucas, and Ava. And Vanessa? Alone. Forgotten. Trapped in a cell, reliving her mistake every single day. She had everything, a husband, a family, a respected name. And she threw it all away for a love that was never meant to be. Vanessa and Theo thought they had planned the perfect murder. They believed they were untouchable. But in the end, greed, lust, and arrogance led to their downfall. And the biggest tragedy? Lucas and Ava never had a chance. This case is a haunting reminder that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes, it comes from the people you trust the most. What do you think? Was Vanessa a victim of manipulation, or was she just as evil as Theo? Let us know in the comments. And if you love shocking true crime stories, like this video, subscribe to Real True Crime Stories, and turn on notifications so you never miss a case. We'll see you in the next one.